My parents took me off the family vacation list because I don't post enough bikini photos. My sister laughed. I didn't say a word, but I already booked my own trip with someone they'd never approve of. I'm 34 female, and my family has always had this glossy, carefully curated image. You know the type: matching Christmas pajamas, weekly brunch pics with perfect lighting, family vacation albums so aesthetic they look like Airbnb advertisements. If it didn't happen on Instagram, it might as well not have happened. My mom, Rochelle, is 60 but looks 45. She's a real estate agent in Scottsdale, Arizona, and her entire brand revolves around being ageless, glam, and effortlessly elegant. My dad, Marcus, runs a successful landscaping company and plays along, usually in pastel polos and loafers, talking like a commercial for Sunbrella furniture. Together, they've built this online persona that makes them look like a desert royalty couple. My younger sister Sierra, 29 female, is their crown jewel, a lifestyle influencer with nearly 200K followers, constant PR trips, and a wardrobe made up mostly of bikinis and sheer cover-ups. Then there's me. Alina. I work at the Phoenix Public Library. I love my job. I love books. I love quiet. I read, write, drink chamomile tea at night, and I have a soft spot for vintage postcards. I do have social media, but I mostly post photos of flowers I find on my morning walks, dog-eared novels, or the occasional awkward selfie when I'm traveling. I don't even use filters. I just never cared for performative posting. I like real life. Apparently, that's a problem. It all came to a head about 6 weeks ago, when my family had our annual trip planning dinner at my parents' place. It's a tradition: every spring, we gather for dinner. My mom makes some type of elaborate seafood dish, and we talk about where we're going for our summer vacation. Last year it was Croatia. The year before, the Amalfi Coast. This year? Tulum. Only I wasn't invited. I noticed it right away. Mom had printed out color-coded itineraries, yes, actual physical copies, and passed them around the table. There were 3. Where's mine? I asked, trying to sound casual. My mom didn't even look up. Oh, sweetheart, we decided to keep it small this year. Just the 3 of us. I blinked. But I've gone every year. Sierra giggled and took a sip of her cucumber mint martini. Honestly, Lena, you don't exactly bring the heat to the vacation feed. I just stared at her. What does that mean? You know, she said with a shrug, you never post bikini pics. You just take those weird book photos. It kind of throws off the vibe. That's when my dad chimed in. We're trying to keep things cohesive this year. You know, more beach content, fewer library shots. You don't really help with exposure, sweetheart. Exposure. They were talking about me like I was a brand liability. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't ask them to reconsider. I sat there, watching them sip their overpriced cocktails, laughing at their own cruelty like it was a joke. But I didn't say a word. Because the truth was, I'd already booked my own trip. And I was bringing someone they would never approve of. Let me back up a little. 4 months before that dinner, I was at a literary conference in San Francisco. I was there mostly to network with other librarians and book lovers, but I ended up meeting someone who turned everything upside down. Her name is Isa. She's 37, French-Algerian, and teaches literature and cultural theory at NYU. She was speaking on a panel about representation in post-colonial fiction, and I was mesmerized by her. Not just by what she said, but how she said it. Calm, deliberate, passionate without being theatrical. We struck up a conversation afterward, and I found myself talking to her for 3 hours straight. We exchanged numbers. A week later, she texted me a poem. 2 weeks later, I booked a flight to New York. It wasn't immediate, but it was magnetic. She made me feel seen, not like a daughter, a sister, or a placeholder in someone else's life, but like a person with thoughts and worth and depth. Isa wasn't flashy. She didn't do selfies. She had no interest in my family's curated world. And she didn't care that I hadn't told them I was dating a woman. She just wanted me to be me. When I got uninvited from the family vacation, I called her that night. Do you want to go somewhere with me in July? I asked. Anywhere, she said, without hesitation. So I booked Oaxaca. It had been on my list for years: the food, the art, the colors, the mountains. We stayed in a little family-run guest house with a courtyard full of orange trees. Every morning, we had fresh tamales and coffee on the patio. We walked hand in hand through markets, climbed ancient ruins, and stayed up late drinking mezcal while talking about books and life and everything in between. And yes, I posted a photo. Not for my parents. Not even for myself, really. Just because it felt like a moment worth remembering. It was a simple picture, Isa and me under string lights, sitting close. I wasn't in a bikini. I was wearing a linen dress, my hair messy from the heat, no makeup. But I was happy. The comments started pouring in. Old college friends, coworkers, even a few of Sierra's old friends. Wait, this is a side of you I've never seen. Who is she? You two look amazing together. You look like you're glowing, Alina. And then Sierra commented. Guess you finally found your aesthetic. I didn't respond. But I knew, they saw it. I was no longer the quiet, forgettable sister with sensible swimsuits and bad angles. I was something else. Something that didn't fit their narrative. And I had never felt more alive. I didn't rush to return their calls after that photo went up. I saw my mom had tried to FaceTime me twice, and Sierra had sent me some vague "we need to talk" text messages. My dad, ever the buffer, left a voicemail that said, "Hope you're having fun, kiddo. Give us a ring when you're back." Like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't cut me out of the family trip like some extra in their tropical brand shoot. I stayed quiet. Isa and I extended the trip by 3 more days. She convinced me to unplug entirely, so I turned off all social media notifications and only checked email once every other day. We hiked in the Sierra Norte mountains, took a cooking class in a tiny kitchen owned by a woman named Marisol who didn't speak a word of English, and spent entire afternoons just lying in hammocks listening to roosters and wind and the hum of life outside the curated algorithm. It was the first vacation in over a decade where I wasn't trying to be someone else. I wasn't adjusting my shirt to hide my stomach, or choosing spots with the best lighting. I wasn't worried about my posture in case someone took a photo. I wasn't being edited in real time. I was there. Every second of it. When we flew back into Phoenix, I felt the weight of my hometown settle on me like it always did. Everything about it is white and beige and manicured. Even the air feels sterilized. Isa walked me to my car in the long-term lot and gave me a slow kiss before she said goodbye. She didn't ask when I'd tell them about her. She didn't push. She just said, "Take your time. But don't disappear." That stayed with me. I drove straight to my apartment and found a delivery on my doorstep, a gift basket from Sierra. Lavender bath salts, an overpriced face serum, and a note that read, "Glad you finally figured out how to take a decent vacation pic. We should talk soon." Hugs and kisses. I didn't even take it inside. I tossed the whole thing into the trash chute. A few days later, I got the invitation. Not a call, not a text, a printed invite delivered in a white envelope with gold lettering, "Family Reset Brunch. Sunday, 11 a.m. The Valley Club." The Valley Club is where my parents host their charity events and wine tastings. It's not where you go to have an honest conversation. But I went. Not because I thought it would change anything, but because I needed to say something. Finally. They were already seated when I arrived. My mom wore a white linen pantsuit, her hair blown out and glossy, oversized sunglasses on the table. Sierra was in a strappy sundress and espadrilles, holding her phone like it was fused to her hand. My dad stood when he saw me, smiling like we were about to clink glasses and pose for the annual Christmas card. I didn't sit down right away. I looked at them. Really looked at them. They looked more like business partners than family. Then I took the empty seat. My mom smiled tight. "You look tan. You look like you've been working on your angles," Sierra said, then laughed to herself. I didn't reply. There was some awkward small talk, how the club had a new head chef, how Scottsdale's market was heating up again. Then my dad leaned in, clasped his hands, and said, "We're glad you're back. We wanted to talk. About everything." I nodded. Waited. My mom took over. "Look, Alina, we didn't mean to exclude you. We just thought the trip would be more aligned without tension. You don't always seem to enjoy those vacations." I raised an eyebrow. Because I wasn't taking enough bikini shots? There was a long pause. Sierra snorted. Oh, come on. You made a whole thing out of that. We were just trying to cure it. You always look so stiff in those photos. I looked at her. Really looked. She was 30, still chasing validation in likes and filters, and didn't seem to realize how hollow she sounded. You didn't want a sister on that trip, I said. You wanted another content generator. My dad winced. That's not fair. No? I said, voice flat. Then why was it a problem that I don't perform for social media the way you want? That I didn't show enough skin? You think this is about filters and bikinis, but it's not. It's about control. I don't fit your brand, and I never have. My mom's jaw clenched. We just wanted you to be part of the family experience. I leaned forward. Your idea of family is a camera-ready illusion. I'm not interested in playing a part in your highlight reel anymore. Sierra rolled her eyes. God, you're so dramatic. You post one photo with a girlfriend and suddenly you're Mother Courage. And just like that, the air went still. My parents froze. They hadn't mentioned ISA. I hadn't said a word about her. But clearly, Sierra had been watching. I gave her a slow smile. You saw that? Of course I did. You're trending in a weird little corner of Bookstagram. My mom cleared her throat. So, that's who you were with? I nodded. She's brilliant. Funny. Kind. And she doesn't care about any of this. I gestured at the table. She cares about me. My dad looked at me, then at my mom, then back to me. We just weren't expecting that. No, I said. You weren't. Because I stopped trying to fit into the mold you made for me. The waiter came by with water, looking unsure whether he should interrupt. We all went silent as he filled our glasses. When he walked away, my mom looked down at her menu. She didn't say another word. I didn't either. The silence between us stretched, uncomfortable but familiar. I sipped my water and let the stillness thicken. It wasn't awkward for me anymore. Not like it used to be. I had spent most of my life filling these kinds of silences, softening the edges, bridging the gaps, trying to make everyone comfortable. Not anymore. Sierra finally broke it. Look, if this is about ISA or whatever. I mean, fine. Cool. Love who you want. But you don't have to make it, like, political. I turned to her, calm as ever. This isn't about politics, Sierra. This is about respect. Which you and mom and dad have spent years withholding from me unless I was playing along. My dad tried to speak, but I held up a hand. No. Let me finish this time. He nodded, slowly. For years, I played the quiet one. The support role. The one who helped take the pictures, who cheered you on, who edited your captions when you asked. I kept my head down and let you mock me for being different. I let it slide when you rolled your eyes at what I wore, or how I lived, or who I was. And even when I was excluded from my own family's vacation, I didn't explode. I didn't even call you out. I just booked a flight and moved on with my life. I could feel my hands trembling slightly under the table, but my voice didn't shake. You talk about vibes and aesthetics like they're more important than people. You didn't ask if I was happy. You didn't ask if I was okay. You asked why I wasn't showing enough skin. Do you even hear yourselves? Sierra shifted in her seat and glanced at Mom, who hadn't lifted her eyes once. My dad looked tired, like he wanted to be anywhere else but here. Then my mom finally spoke, her voice unusually quiet. We just didn't expect you to turn away from us like that. I let out a dry laugh. Turn away? Mom, you uninvited me from a trip I've gone on for over a decade because I didn't post bikini shots. What exactly did you think would happen? She sighed. We didn't mean to hurt you. But you did, I said. And instead of apologizing, you tried to rope me back in with a fake brunch at a country club so we could pretend to make amends without actually talking about anything real. No one said this brunch was fake, my dad began, but I cut him off. You don't get to be surprised that I found someone who actually sees me. Who doesn't try to edit me, or hide me, or make me more palatable. ISA's not a reaction. She's not a protest. She's the first thing in a long time that actually feels real. The table fell quiet again. I wasn't expecting an apology anymore. That part of me had finally gone still. My mom finally looked up, and her face had softened a bit, but only slightly. Are you serious about her? I thought about that question. I thought about the way Isa held my hand in crowded markets. The way she remembered tiny things I'd said weeks earlier. The way she saw through my silence and stayed, without pressing. Yes, I said simply. I am. Sierra leaned back and crossed her arms. Well, she better be ready for the circus. If you're really going to be out here posting all domestic and serious, people are going to talk. I'm just saying, people remember that stuff. For someone who claims not to care about being political, I said, you sure sound obsessed with public opinion. She looked away. I glanced at my dad. He gave me a look I couldn't quite decipher. Part guilt, part confusion, part something else. Maybe recognition. Maybe regret. I didn't know. Then he finally said, do you want us to meet her? It wasn't performative. It wasn't forced. I stared at him. Then looked at my mom. Her lips were tight, but she didn't object. I waited. Not now, I said. Not until you figure out whether you're asking because you're curious about me, or because you want to fix the optics. Sierra rolled her eyes again, but this time I didn't react. I wasn't doing this for her. I wasn't even doing it for them. This was for me. I'm not hiding who I am anymore, I added. You don't have to approve. But you don't get to cut me out and then act confused when I stop playing along. The waiter came back again, hovering politely. I pushed the menu toward him. Just a coffee. Black. He nodded and stepped away. I sat back in my seat and let the silence fall again, this time on my terms. They looked uncomfortable. Good. Maybe it was time they sat with that. I hadn't stormed out. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't staged a dramatic walkout, like some part of me used to fantasize about. But something in the dynamic had shifted. Not because they changed. But because I did. The brunch ended on that awkward, brittle note, me nursing a bitter coffee while they quietly paid the bill, unsure of where we stood. We hugged in that forced, uncomfortable way people do when they aren't sure if they'll speak again soon. My mom kissed my cheek like she was still trying to save face. My dad said he'd call me. Sierra didn't say anything. She just tapped away on her phone, probably drafting a post about family time and forgiveness. But I didn't wait for them to fix things. I stopped checking their pages. I muted them. I gave myself space. I didn't block them, just let the noise fade out. And in that quiet space, something surprising started to grow. The photo I had posted of Isa and me had slowly made the rounds. Some of my old classmates, even former coworkers, reached out. Not for gossip, but support. A few people I barely knew messaged me to say how powerful it was to see someone finally being themselves after growing up in a family so built on performance. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Rena, who had gone to high school with Sierra and Ialina. I saw your photo. I just wanted to say thank you. I remember how invisible you were in school, how Sierra got all the attention. I always thought you had something special, but I could tell your family never saw it. That photo? That was the first time I saw the real you. And you looked radiant. I cried reading that. Because it was true. I had been invisible, even in my own family. But somehow, by stepping out of their frame, I had finally come into focus. And then, something unexpected happened. 3 weeks later, Isa and I went to a small reading in Tempe. A friend of hers was launching a book, and we were there for moral support. Afterward, I was chatting with one of the bookstore's co-owners when she asked me if I'd ever considered doing a reading of my own. I've read your blog, she said. Your writing's honest. Lyrical. Real. People want that now. I blinked. Wait, you read my blog? She smiled. Everyone in the local lit scene does. You have a voice. Don't hide it. That night, I told Isa. She squeezed my hand and said, good. They're finally seeing what I've always seen. So I did it. I scheduled a reading. It was low-key, just a Friday evening at a downtown bookstore. I shared a few essays I'd written about identity, silence, and coming into your own. The audience was small but warm. I saw tears. I saw knowing smiles. And guess who showed up? Sierra. She walked in 15 minutes late, of course, with perfect hair and a linen jumpsuit that probably cost more than my rent. But she sat quietly in the back. She didn't film it. Didn't post a selfie. She just listened. Afterward, I was talking to people when she came up to me. She looked uncomfortable. That was real, she said. I didn't expect it to hit me like that. I looked at her carefully. I didn't write it for you. I know, she said. But maybe I needed to hear it anyway. She paused, then added, I didn't realize how much I'd hurt you. I didn't rush to reassure her. I let her feel that weight. Then she said something I didn't expect. I talked to Mom. They saw the picture too. The one with ISA. And I think it's finally sinking in for them, that the way they treated you wasn't okay. I gave her a look. I mean, they're still in denial, she admitted. But they're talking. That's new. I nodded. Good. They can do that without me. She swallowed, hard. I just wanted to say, you looked really happy in that photo. I smiled, just a little. I was. Then I turned to ISA, who was chatting with a few of the bookstore staff, and reached for her hand. And I saw the flicker in Sierra's eyes. Not jealousy, exactly. More like realization. The kind that creeps in slowly when you realize someone you look down on has something you can't fake. Love. Integrity. Peace. A few weeks later, I was walking through the Phoenix Farmers Market with ISA when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. We're planning a family dinner in 2 weeks. Just dinner. No photos. No expectations. Just us. ISA is more than welcome. Let me know. I stared at the screen. I didn't answer right away. I slid my phone back into my bag, looked up at ISA, and smiled. Let's go find the lavender lady, I said. She always sells out early. We didn't talk about the text. Not then. Because I wasn't rushing to be accepted anymore. I had learned something far more satisfying. I didn't need to win their approval. I had built something real. A life where I was seen, heard, loved, as I was. That was my revenge. Not shouting. Not cutting them off. Just thriving. Quietly. Deeply. Fully. In a way they never thought I could. And now, when they see me, they don't see the invisible sister. They see the woman who walked away and came back whole. On her terms.